Mexico was once a great nation for football, a decent nation at best. They have had great performances on the biggest stages, even getting to the point of winning the Confederations Cup in 1999. Who was that against? Brazil. Yeah, a Brazil that had the likes of Ronaldinho and Dida. But today, Mexican football went from decent looking to a total disaster. After not advancing to the knockout stages in the Copa America, a lot of their fans have realized
our national team is shit.
Now, how did Mexican football reach this low point? Who is to blame for all of this? And is there any hope for Mexican football to return to its former glory, at least to a decent state? We'll cover it all in this video. Okay, let's get right into it. So the first question that we need to be asking ourselves is, when did the downfall actually start? We'll start off by taking a quick look at Mexico in their last two big tournaments. First, we've got the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Here, El Tri felt like they had to perform. It's ingrained in their culture. It's a duty, because the year before, they had lost twice to the USA in both the Gold Cup final and the Nations League final, which was a huge disappointment. Something that had never happened before in any generation. So in the 2022 World Cup, Mexico was placed in a tough group with Argentina, Poland, and Saudi Arabia. And despite that, they were confident they could still make it out of the group, because in their last 10 campaigns in the World Cup, they had made it out of their group. In other words, they hadn't been knocked out of the group stages of the World Cup since their campaign in 1978. But in 2022, their streak was finally over. They got knocked out of the group stages, ending up in third place. This left a good majority of the Mexican fans worried. Obviously not to the point it's at today. So, 2 years later, it was time for the 2024 Copa America. Despite having a roller coaster of a year in 2023 and the disappointment in the 2022 World Cup, they were ready to put up a proper fight to redeem themselves for their nation. At least they thought they could. You see, it's actually hard to picture how high hopes the Mexican fans had for this tournament, because they are always so optimistic when it comes to football. And when they saw the teams in their group, they were even more confident they could advance to the next stages.
However, I will give El Tri the benefit of the doubt. So Mexico in second, Venezuela in third.
I'm going to say Ecuador finished top above Mexico.
And then Mexico will barely survive and get second place as well.
But long story short, Mexico failed to get out of the group, leaving a whole nation in frustration and disappointment. How they did this sits behind the core problems of the team right now. But what's the actual problems they're facing? First, which is probably the most obvious one, is that the Mexican team, including the starting 11, has started to fill up players from Liga MX. And for me, this makes absolutely no sense to me. And the same with you, right? Because of this day and age, people need to realize the best players play in Europe. And if you have a couple of them, you must use each one. At least give them a chance. Players like Raúl Jiménez, Julián Araujo, and Irving Lozano have to be used even if they don't get a lot of playing time in Europe. There is a reason why they're in Europe. So that decision by Jimmy Lozano was something I couldn't get past. As soon as I saw that first squad in the first game, I knew we were finished. The next problem Mexico was facing was again with the manager. A pretty similar problem as we discussed earlier. Jimmy Lozano's decisions on the field are very, very questionable. Again, why not play the best team you possibly can? Does it make sense to not play the best 11 possible? No. So, to be honest, a lot of the blame is on the manager, but you can actually put some blame on the players as well. You see, this might come as a surprise to you, but the next big problem doesn't happen on the field. It's an off-field issue. It's the fact that Mexican players in today's game are all about the money and girls, with no concentration for the beautiful game. And this isn't an opinion-based problem, it's a factual problem, one that is actually true. Because history often repeats itself with this one thing. Footballers are not focusing on the game we all love. We've seen it thousands of times with many players. Neymar is a recent example of this. He started out liking the game we all love, but when it came to money, girls, and fame, he entirely forgot about the football part. Nay, like many others, get preoccupied with things other than the game, which really causes you to perform poorly on the field. And the thing is, and this isn't just a one-player situation in the Mexican team, it's a problem with multiple players. Not pointing fingers though. Alexis Vega. So, now that we've covered the problems of El Tri, let's go over to the final question. Is there any hope for the Mexican national team to turn back to its former glory? The answer is simple. Yes, but there's a catch here. They can't just sit and wait for a new golden generation or Pep Guardiola to lead them to success, right? In order to make any progress, they need to do something now. What could be some good solutions? Firstly, El Tri has to learn from the Brazilians. You might think, what fucking things do we need to learn from them? All they do is dance and shit, right? Well, Mexican clubs need to send their players at a young age to Europe to build up Mexican football again. Mexican football cannot single-handedly create a dozen of talents, but in Europe, they're experts at doing it. And even though the strategy might hurt a bit because Mexican clubs will lose a lot of profit in doing so, it is, in fact, proven to work. Lionel Messi is a great example. Vinicius Jr. is a great example. Heung-min Son is another great example. And these are just a few names that came up at the top of my head. And I feel like I can come up with 20 or more of these names that have migrated to Europe at such a young age. Obviously, that one is a long-term solution that will take some years. But one solution they can literally change today is playing more friendlies against European teams. And I obviously mean national teams because, sorry if I say anything wrong or anything weird, but only playing against Jamaica, Honduras, El Salvador, Costa Rica, all of those teams in the CONCACAF won't get you far. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, sometimes these nations are pretty good, but there will be limits to how much you improve by playing against these nations because these nations are not competitive in the slightest. Take a look at Canada. Their last 3 friendlies have been against France, the Netherlands, and Japan. All of these are great nations for football. So did they win any of these 3 games? No. But what did they learn from playing them? A lot. It prepared them tactically and mentally for the Copa America, I'd say. This strategy actually worked so well that Canada ended up going to the semifinal, losing 2-0 to the world champions and eventual Copa America champions as well. So this is definitely something Mexico should be preparing for before the year 2026 at the World Cup. Now, if you want to see why Endrick is the next big striker, despite his recent performances with Brazil, click the screen up above. If you like the channel's content, please leave a like and subscribe, as I would really appreciate it. Okay, well guys, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.